the real exciting thing is the final, and this is the reason that I placed the order. Steve has very kindly given me a free anti-popping kit for FTO. So the Cubicle put these, what is it called? LBL, that's the name of his little offshoot. So he's given me an FTO logo as well, an LBL logo. And these are the 3D printed pieces that will be used to prevent popping. So I'm very excited to try these out. Now my understanding is that I'm going to need to glue these parts to pieces on the Diansheng. I actually have one that's sort of taken apart here. So in and amongst all these pieces I have somewhere in here the centerpiece. Don't mind that everything's falling on the floor. There it is. Right, there's a centerpiece. And my understanding was this either goes on, goes on here, I believe. Sits on it like that. Very nice. I might just want to file and sand these pieces actually, because the finish on top is good, but there's a little bit of roughness. I don't know if that was just because, you know, they're having to do so many. Maybe it's the plastic is an awkward one to print in. I know ABS is kind of a pain to print, but it's pretty good. Still, it's pretty important. And then where does this go? How many of these are there? Okay, so there should be, I'm expecting 8 of these triangular pieces because there's 8 centers. Yep. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and there's a spare. So there's 12 of these, and there's 12 edges. So how do these work? Do these attach to like that? Huh. Okay. So they I assume, I'll have to double check, but I assume they sort of attach in the center of the edge like this. So then, oh, I see. Right. So then we've got these guys. Wow, my camera does not want to focus on this. So this is kind of how the pieces interlock with one another. It's like that. Okay, cool. So they're a little bit rough. Some of them are good actually. The printing on this one's really nice. Yeah, that's a good finish. And the only bit of flash is on a part that's not relevant. Yeah, so some of them are, I guess because they're such small pieces, it's kind of hard to have, you know, reliable printing. But yeah, like this sort of thing here, I will definitely sand and file these down first, make them smooth. Yeah, the centers are a bit hit and miss. Some of them I'm seeing are quite nice, and some of them are a little bit messy. But either that is because, you know, Steve wanted to get a version out to me ASAP, and so they're a little bit rushed, or, you know, it could just be that this is an awkward material to print. Regardless, it doesn't matter because I am more than capable of sanding down a few pieces of plastic. So I will attend to that and glue those together. I'll double check how to do it properly. Hi everyone, and welcome to a slightly different episode. This is not going to be an FTO Friday today. It's going to be talking about the brand new LBL anti-pop kit that the Cubicle is offering. They're 3D printed parts that you stick in your Diansheng FTO, and hopefully it reduces the amount of times your edges pop. So this kit was designed by Pedro Francisco Jacinto Rodas. Hopefully I pronounced that not too incorrectly. Thank you very much for for sending one out, Steve. So Steve from the Cubicle sent one of them to me for free. Actually, I bought a cube and a couple of logos, and then he stuck that in my order for free. So that was very kind of him. Yeah, so full disclosure, I didn't pay for mine. I am considering buying another couple potentially. There's the biggest problem with the Diansheng is that the edges come out, and they shouldn't. Basically, the design should be such that it's stopped, and this kit seems to be a measure in the right direction, or at least attempting to reduce edge pops. The Cubicle has released a video with a couple of other solvers talking about their experience with it, I've had it for a couple of weeks and I'm going to talk about it. But first we're going to cut to sort of the internals of these guys and show you a little bit about what it looks like, what the point of it is, you know, the impetus of the design. So be right back. I don't know why I did a finger click there. So I've pulled apart all of the FTOs. We've got on the left a Rextio. This is a LAN. Then this is an unmodded Diansheng, and this is the Diansheng with the new kit installed. So essentially, if we take a look at this, now all the pieces are going to go flying, but the important part is that with our centerpiece, our edge piece like this hooks underneath. Come on, can you focus? Apparently not. I do apologize. Trying everything and it won't do it. Oh, that's so annoying. Come on. There we go. So these edge pieces have an additional torpedo underneath which hooks right under the center like that and occupies quite a considerable distance underneath the center like that. And then if we get a look at the LAN, it's a similar story. It's not quite as large, so the edges are known to pop out sometimes. On Ben's tutorial for modding the LAN, he actually recommends sanding certain parts of the edges, but not this part of the center and not that part of the foot, just because if you do, then that will remove material here that makes it more likely to pop out. But then if we compare that to the Diansheng, there's much less material here that's sitting underneath the center. There's not enough space really because there's this big triangular column in the way. So whereas if I grab the Rex cube, you can see there's a huge difference between how far this bottom lip overhangs versus this one. Big difference. So although this piece overall is wider, that's because the upper lip is wider than this lip. Actually, it's only just slightly wider. This actually goes in at a much steeper angle than this part does, which is how it's able to get such a large overhang on the centerpiece, like so. Which then leads to having the LBL kit installed. The logic is basically we should have more material hanging underneath the edge and the center. So effectively we've got a second or a third layer of torpedoes going on here. So you've got your two lips there, and then this is your third. And the focus is a little bit gammy. In fact, hang on, let me turn on flash. There we go, that might be easier to see. Yeah, that's better. So now these two here sit underneath center, or against it and under it, and then this lip of the central part here goes underneath. You can see it's not really overhanging a huge amount. This is because this part here has to be wide enough to fit around the central pillar. So if the central pillar itself in the Diansheng design was narrower, then we would be able to put more material here. So there wouldn't be so much, if there was less plastic in the way in the central column, then this torpedo could be larger and prevent edge pops. So essentially what this does is it adds another layer of material to try and prevent it. Again, you can see that it's still entirely possible to pop out. It's just there's another stopping force there, another bit of resistance. So it's that little extra bit harder. But that's why when you see people talking about how they get a partial edge pop, that's where the edge kind of comes out like this. So you can see that the green piece here could actually theoretically sit underneath. I don't think that's how it works, because I've actually had partial edge pops on the Diansheng before, where the edges come out a little bit, you push it back into place, and that was before the kit. But yeah, essentially it's just basically more resistance to the edge coming out. I didn't need that piece anyway, it's fine. So when we look at when we sort of draw this comparison, we can see that the LAN sort of, was mostly focused on actually making a functional puzzle, but this somewhat prevents popping. And the Rex Cube by Chi was designed very fervently with an anti-pop mechanism, which is surprising for a non-WCA. But it does mean that edge pops are extremely rare on the Rextio. I don't think I've ever had an edge pop in the 2 years that I was solving on a Rextio. Trying to think if I have. I've had lots of triangle pops, but they don't matter. In a shell mech, if a triangle comes out, just keep solving. If the mechanism is good enough, it doesn't matter if a triangle comes out. It matters if an edge comes out. Just reaching for the edge piece. There we go. Okay, so some other thoughts about the kit, or at least some other bits of information. When I received the kit, there were a couple of pieces which had extra bits of flash, extra bits of material on them, which I was concerned could affect the turning or catch too much. So I sent the pictures to Stephen, and he said that they would, the sort of the pieces of the support. So when you're 3D printing, and it sort of puts down the layer of material, often when you have a funny shape, then you will also get the printer to print some stalks, some sticks, some scaffolding, basically, in order to support the print and avoid it falling over. And that stuff comes off fairly easily, but I think in QC, Stephen just missed a few pieces. It happens. He said that shouldn't happen. He said that I showed him 2 or 3 pieces, and most of them were pretty small, so easy to miss. And there was one quite big piece, and he said he was surprised that he missed it. So I'm guessing that he's being more thorough with the QC since. I assume so. And he also mentioned, and I've spoken to a couple of people, there is a possibility of a defect in the print of some of these pieces. What happens is, in the centerpieces, I can't show you one because it's in the puzzle right now, but I'll put a picture on screen. On the centerpieces, there needs to be a sort of curve shape to it. It needs to be curvy. And what's happening is that instead of having this curve shape, it's kind of... Oh, sorry, I do apologize. It should be flat on one part. And what's happening is that sometimes it's kind of curving up at the edges. So it means that the edges can run off at the apex of the turn. At that point, sort of where you're about here-ish, if the centerpiece is curved upwards, so there's less material catching under the edge, then that edge piece might actually slip out. So Stephen has said that if you do have defects in your parts, then take some photos of those centers showing that there is that defect, and get in touch with the cubicle. So just send them an email. Because if there is a defect, that's not your fault. So I don't know if he said that they'll send you another or refund or what. I don't know what their policy is. That's for you to find out when you email them. But he has said that, if there is a defect, they will honor some decision to make that right. And the other thing I was going to say is for my pieces where there is still a few tiny bits of flash from the supports, you can remove it with a craft knife or a file or sandpaper. It's a little fiddly because they're small pieces, but the important thing is that you need to be careful not to remove too much material. So I was careful for the most part, but on 2 of the centerpieces I was a little overzealous with my filing, and I think I removed slightly too much material. It's nothing major. It's not as severe as the defects that Stephen was showing, the images he showed, but it was still a bit not ideal. So that's something to bear in mind. I think there's basically, I'll show the pictures because I can't remember off the top of my head what they look like. The pictures should elucidate the issues there. If I've got anything wrong there, I do apologize to Pedro and Stephen. But as for the actual effect on the puzzle, what I have here are 2 puzzles which, this is a Diansheng that's stickered. It's a Force Diansheng, it's stickered. Doesn't have the kit in. This one does. And I've done a few solves on both of them. And what I've noticed most of all is how tight I've needed to have this puzzle compared with this one. Like, it may not look like much, but I can pull these guys apart quite a distance, and I do not really have quite as, I mean, I'm putting a considerable amount of force to pull these pieces apart, whereas I don't really need to do that on this one. So it appears that after some 100 solves or so, I have sort of settled on a slightly looser tension on the one with the kit in. And what this suggests is that, you know, you can, you're less likely to catch. You're less likely to have major problems of catching, with issues with catching, because you're slightly looser, which is good because you don't want catching constantly. And this is a catchy puzzle. There's no corner cutting on it. At least there's no reverse corner cutting. And the anti-pop kit has sort of, I guess, instilled a bit of confidence and trust that it won't just fall apart as soon as I've messed around with it. I will say, before I found this tension, I had 4 pops in 25 solves, 2 of which happened during scrambling, and 2 of which happened during solves, which is way too many. So I had found I just wasn't on the right tension. I haven't had any pops since, so I don't believe it's a defect of the kit. I don't think it's a problem with the design. I think it was a matter of tension. That being said, other people have reported that they've had pops since. They've also had the fun half edge pop where the edge comes out a bit and you just click it in. I've had it on all my Dianshengs. I just don't think the edge design was up to scratch. I just think it was a little bit lacking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of solves on both of them as a comparison. You can kind of see as I'm hand scrambling this, I'm catching a lot. I have to have it at a tighter tension to avoid any pops. And forgive me if I mess up my color scheme or anything. It has been a while. There's a 7 mover to solve that. I didn't need to do 8, 9 moves to move it. Everyone should know it. It's this one. If you've got the pair in the slot, there's a 7 mover to solve that. And then with the slightly looser FTO, but this has got the kit in, so you can see I am still catching, because again, this puzzle is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so yep, I can still pop it. Still get edge pops. But like you can see, the thing is, we have to kind of gamble with the tensions. There's an inherent risk with the Diansheng, unfortunately. And it would appear that I still have them too loose. Alright, make that 5 pops then. Yes, guys, I am actually going to just show myself putting the whole thing back together. So, I'll be honest, I mean, I do think the kit has helped, but as you can see, it's clearly not perfect. I think that it's kind of a losing battle with this design. The edges just aren't designed. The edges, like, for want of a better phrase, the edges are designed to come out. Like, they're not, there is no anti-pop mechanism, right? And so by attaching these extra parts, we are hopefully making it less likely to happen. But as you can see, I'm risking a looser tension as a result. So, you know, it comes with its drawback. I mean, I might as well try and solve this. So, I mean, maybe there is a solution which perfects this process and you know, totally fixes and does away with all the edge popping problems. But I think there comes a point where we have to acknowledge that, like, this puzzle is just not good enough to never pop at the edges. So yeah, like, again, it's about the same. There's no difference in my solving speed between the two. I will say I was a bit concerned about the adding extra weight to the puzzle, because I'm having difficulty with RSI at the moment, and the lighter the puzzle, the better. So the fact that the kit doesn't weigh very much at all when I've added it is really good. I'm glad about that. I'm probably going to have to tighten this now. But apart from that, I'm satisfied with the kit. But I mean, as you can see, it's not perfect, and I'm not 100% sure if I will go for a second copy. I think other people have found it to be really, really useful. Maybe I just haven't, maybe I've just been less lucky. I haven't noticed a huge difference. Maybe I just wasn't unlucky with pops, to be like, maybe I was less, like maybe I just have had fewer pops on the normal Diansheng because I tend towards a tighter tension, or what. I don't know what the explanation is, but it's not perfect. It's pretty good though, and I think it's worth considering at least. But yeah, I understand that there might be other people working on other ways to get around the popping nightmare. But in all honesty, I'm just gonna look forward to Diane's FTO. Apparently, they are actually putting in a decent amount of effort to make it a premium puzzle. So I'm hoping that they actually do succeed in an anti-pop mechanism, because that's the main thing that's wrong with the Diansheng. It's light, it turns nicely, it's magnetized to a good strength, the glossy plastic is gorgeous, the size is a bit small, apparently the Diane will be slightly larger. It sounds like the Diane could be the better of the two, but we have to wait and see, because there's no guarantee. It might be terrible. Might have an even more fatal flaw than the Diansheng does. Oh, Ed, you silly man. All right, that'll do. Not necessary. Yeah, now this is too tight now, unfortunately. This is too tight for me. So I overdid it. I'm going to have to find some tension between what I just had and what I've got now, which is a difference probably of about 45 degrees. Well, it's actually 90 degrees on the screws. So yeah, that's, even though the kit has added some, it has improved the range of usable tensions, it's still very limited. However, I will say it's only $5, and especially if in the US, shipping is cheap. So like maybe for $5 it doesn't make any, like it's not a bad shout. Yeah, I mean, thank you very much, Stephen, for sending me one. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I'm not sold yet.